All right, friends, welcome. Thank you so much for joining our community conversation today. Conversations about our community hosted by United Way of Lancaster County. I am Kate Zimmerman, president of United Way, and I'm so glad that you're with us today. United Way of Lancaster County works to advance the education, economic mobility, and health of our community by mobilizing resources, people, and organizations. And conversations about our community bring community leaders to the table to discuss key issues in our community. Our goal is to bring people together, to talk about things that matter, to share important information, knowledge, and wisdom, and to help provide a path forward to bettering the lives of everyone in Lancaster County. Today's conversation is about workforce development in Lancaster County. I am going to, in just a moment, introduce our wonderful panel to all of you. Then we will have a short presentation, and following the presentation, some time for questions, both from me and from all of you. So I encourage you to put questions in the chat if you have something you'd like to ask one of the presenters. We will then follow up after today's presentation by email with recording and also links to any resources that might be mentioned in our conversation. All right, let me get to the important part. You don't want to talk to me all day, do you? So first off on our panel, I'm going to just call out our names and then let you each tell us a little bit about your organization. I know we'll talk more about it when we get to our question portion. But Valerie Hatfield is the Director of Workforce and Economic Development at Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology. Valerie, tell us a little bit about your work.
Yeah, so just a little bit about me. I really draw on my career experience for workforce development. So I actually spent about 17 years in a manufacturing facility doing multiple roles. And then I spent 8 years in the public workforce system. So I really got to understand what workforce development is and how we all work together. And then most recently, as you mentioned, I've transitioned to education. So I've kind of experienced all the trifecta of workforce and all the key players in that. And I get to oversee the Workforce and Economic Development Center at Thaddeus, which is our non-credit continuing education workforce side of the college. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, the needs that we see in the workforce, education plays a key role in that. And it's not just about what do we do after high school, but it's that lifelong learning path.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Up next is Tyrone Miller. Tyrone is the CEO of Lancaster Works. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I am the CEO of Lancaster Works, and I also serve on United Way's Collective Impact Committee, the 211 Committee. I'm on the L-SHRM Board of Directors, HUDC Mid-Atlantic Board of Directors, and I try to keep my hands on everything related to workforce development because I think that is really the key to addressing a number of the social ills that we're dealing with in our community. And I'm just excited to be here today to share with you.
Thanks so much. We're glad you're here. Dr. Stuart Savin is the Administrative Director of the Lancaster County Career and Technology Center. Welcome. Oh, you're muted still.
Of course.
We're getting there.
Thanks for the opportunity. Lancaster CTC provides career education opportunities for approximately 1,500 to 1,600 high school students a year and over 2,000 adults through our programs that include degrees as well as short-term certificates for adults.
Wonderful, thank you. And last but not least, Anna Ramos is the Executive Director of the Lancaster County Workforce Development Board. And Anna, you're going to be also sharing a presentation. Maybe we'll cross our fingers that our screen share works today, but I'll first let you introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Kate. Yep, Anna Ramos here with the Lancaster County Workforce Development Board. Happy to be here with friends, right? So I have a unique background, over 20 years of workforce development experience at various levels, working with our PA CareerLink system for many of those years as a site administrator and working with our job seekers, and then spent some time working with the Lancaster Chamber and with business initiatives. So really got to work with a lot of our job seekers on the business side of that, and now full circle at the Workforce Board, working with both entities, and then throw in their education, full circle, that whole workforce ecosystem. So really happy to be here today and talk about that whole ecosystem.
Wonderful, thank you. And I understand you have a presentation for us.
Yep. Let's see.
We were joking earlier that the The combination of all of us seems to have broken Zoom today, so we're crossing our fingers that technology works for us. You'd think after 4 years we'd figured it out, but we may not be there yet.
Well, I think just recently it all just changed, so that's why it looks different.
All right, well, I can see your presentation, so I think you're good to go. I'll mute so you can take it from here.
Okay, is it showing up as a slideshow for you?
Just showing up as the whole PowerPoint presentation right now.
Okay.
Now it's circling. It's thinking about something.
Uh-oh.
Now it is slideshow, but we can see your notes.
Oh no. Okay, so we don't want that. Is it back to the slideshow? There we go. Is it good now?
We can see your slides down the side, but we can still see your main slide front and center.
Okay. It's going crazy. So I'm going to leave it like that. Is that okay like that if I keep it with the slides on the side?
Yes, that's great.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and just get started. So I just want to talk a few minutes and talk to you a little bit about the workforce landscape for Lancaster County, and also who are we, the Workforce Development Board, and what our role is in collaborating space to support our local businesses and job seekers in Lancaster County. And we talk a lot about the recovery since the pandemic, right? We talk about what does this look like in regard to workforce, and we're definitely seeing our labor force participation increase since 2019, and even continuing to grow since 2022, but not at the record speed that we were seeing mass amounts of people being hired in numbers and large amounts of people that businesses are looking for. But it's steadying and it's beginning to level off. Employers are continuing to hire, but not looking for those mass amounts. But the difference is looking for those skilled laborers. And we're going to dive into that in a little bit in my presentation. But before we do that, I just want to do a brief introduction as to who we are as the Workforce Development Board, as an organization, and what is it that we do, and how do we do the work that we do. And I've been told, and some of you have heard this, some of you like the phrase, some of you don't like the phrase. I'm not sure where I sit with it either, that we're the best kept secret. And we are on a mission to make sure that we're not anymore. And we're really linking arms with our state partners across the state to make sure that the workforce boards are not the best kept secret anymore. And we really want to start with providing some clarity and being intentional about the work that we're doing. So who are we? So I have three logos at the top there. The Lancaster County Workforce Development Board is who I identified that I am with. And you also have the logo there of the PA Career Link. And I also provided the logo there for Career Ready Lancaster. Because when I say who are we really have our tentacles and are connected to all three of those entities. So when you have that elevator pitch and when you're talking to individuals, no wonder it's so hard to identify who are we, because we really are, in some essence, we have connection to all three of those identities. So what we're trying to do is really make sure we articulate what it is that we are. So in all three of those areas, so as the Workforce Board, you have federal dollars, and at the state level, we work with our Career Link partners, and at the local level, we have Career Ready Lancaster. So it's the workforce system convener, that is who we are, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit throughout the presentation. So what do? We align fiscal resources and provide strategic direction to job seekers and businesses to create economic mobility within Lancaster County. And how do we do that? By being the convener, just as I talked about those three entities, the convener of workforce partners and leveraging our resources to support the needs of our community through grants to outside entities. So we receive federal dollars, and those dollars get passed through the state, and then they get divided out to our local areas. And we are one of 22 workforce development boards across the state. But at the Workforce Board, we don't do direct service, and we provide those dollars out to community partners to run programs within the county. We procure those dollars out to the community as we see needs. And some of those examples that you may have heard about are our Near Completers Grant, where we received $1.7 million to help those that were just needed some credentials to finish their college degree. We have an apprenticeship grant where we received $175,000 to work with businesses to help with apprenticeship programs and build future apprenticeship programs. And then our Business Education Partnership Grant, where we go after additional funds every year to help support the initiatives of Career Ready Lancaster. And we've also gone after school activity grants of over $200,000, where we put those out to the local community to help our after school programs and other entities do work with our youth within the community. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do and how we do it. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into what the landscape of workforce looks like. So here we can see that we have 5,222 employers in Lancaster County. And currently there are 21,832 job postings. And here's a sample of the occupations and job postings that you can see currently right now in Lancaster County. And I also provided a snapshot of the education levels of those in-demand jobs that you can see the posting for. And this is where we talk about that skills gap or those supply and demand mismatch. So we look at the occupations, openings by occupations. And you see that there are 780 registered nurse active job ads, retail salesperson, first line supervisors. And then we look at our openings by education levels. And overwhelmingly, high school diploma comes in as the number one, followed by bachelor's degree, associate's degree, as the top three education levels needed for Lancaster County for the occupation and the needs of our occupations and skills that are needed in Lancaster County. We're going to dive a little bit deeper now into the why of what we do and key workforce issues of 2024 and beyond. So we talk about some of those key things that you've heard, if you've heard me speak, if you've heard economic development companies speak, that we have an aging workforce. We're currently right now, 26% of our current workforce in Lancaster County is 55 and over. We've seen a drastic shift in employers' focus. I talked about our labor force employers are still hiring, but at a slower rate, and they're looking at the skilled workers, and employers are really focused now on retaining the workforce they have and upskilling for that talent that they need. And currently within the Workforce Development Board, we can provide employers a reimbursement for upskilling their workforce. So we have incumbent worker training dollars where we can reimburse employers for upskilling their workforce. And this is just a snapshot of what we've been able to do to reimburse employers for doing such things. So in our last program year, we have reimbursed 8 employers at around $90,000 total. And for this program year, as of the end of April, we are at 82,000, just about 83,000 with 9 employers. And I can tell you every day, I'm signing more and more of those that we will, I am sure, going to surpass $100,000 for this program year. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And some of the other things that we're looking at, workforce issues and things that we're focused on of how we're combating and working with these workforce issues is really helping employers identify and retaining their employees is career pathways. How can we help employers identify how to keep their employees by identifying career pathways for them of advancement and growth? So going back to that labor force and looking at out of the current number of job openings for every job seeker, there's 2.4 current job openings for every 1 job seeker. That is the frustration that our employers are seeing. that is the advantage that our job seekers are having. So how can the Workforce Board help? And what are the things that we are doing to create collaboration? We have financial resources that I just spoke about, and I'll show in the next slide. How can we help businesses with their retention efforts? And the big piece that we are working on is the collaboration and partnerships. So we are really focused on the economic mobility for our job seekers through our business education partnerships, providing opportunities for all people for growth. Things like apprenticeships, incumbent workers training, ensuring that our local businesses have the skilled workforce they need now and in the future. We're investing in industry tours for our teachers, getting them out into the workforce to learn what skills businesses need and how to make their curriculum relevant, assisting training providers to get their trainings approved so we can pay for those for job seekers who are seeking services through the PA Career Link. We are looking to be the connector of resources to help businesses and job seekers better navigate that workforce development ecosystem that I started off with. There's so many things out there for people and for businesses, but if you don't know about them, you don't know about them. So we are working to align those resources through asset mapping. There's currently right now a partnership that we are doing with folks like United Way, with the Lancaster Chamber, Economic Development Company, and Community Action Partnership, and doing a survey and asset mapping. Who is doing workforce development? Who's providing services? And who is funding those types of services? Let's take a look at what's happening in the county. Where are there gaps in services? What's happening well? What's not happening well? Let's put that all on a baseline and let's articulate what are the things that are needed to create economic mobility for Lancaster County. And let's start tracking those things so we can know that if the services and the things that we're doing are actually creating impact. So we're really excited about that partnership to create better alignment within all of our services. And the other really big part about creating collaboration is connecting business, education, and all of our community partners with our collaboration with Career Ready Lancaster, where you can go to one site to be able to access information, whether you're looking for a career pathway, whether you're looking for a career advancement, or you're just looking to see what's within Lancaster County. All of that information can be found on one website, and we're really excited about that opportunity. Tangible things that we can take away, and I have one more slide after this, but tangible things that the Workforce Development Board is doing to help our local businesses and job seekers. We have paid internships for youth where 100% of the funding is by the PA Career Link, where we can get youth out into internships and we can pay 100% of that, getting that experience for our youth. We have on-the-job training. We're up to 75% of the reimbursement to employer during that training for individuals. Upskilling the workforce. I talked about that with that incumbent worker training, reimbursement for training costs, and apprenticeships for 50% of the cost of technical training. And the great thing that we can do, and our business service team within the PA Career Link can help, or individuals within the Workforce Board can help, is stack some of these things. So how can we work with a business to identify what is your need and how can we work with you to stack some of the services that we have to help offset the cost of your workforce challenges. And before I close, the last thing that we just did is we deployed over 30 kiosks within Lancaster County, where we created a microsite of all of those resources that I just spoke about. We took career pathways of our local businesses and we're looking to grow. So if you have a business and you have a career pathway, or if you don't have a career pathway, the flyer right next to it, we have another workshop happening in June where we can help local businesses for free put together a career pathway that showcases how you advance within your company. And we'd love to showcase that on this this kiosk machine. These kiosks are in every local high school, public and private, and in some community-based organizations like the Lancaster Library, Community Action Partnership, at Lancaster Works, at the IU13, and the CTCs. So these are two individuals, two high school students that are accessing the kiosk machine. We are collecting data from the kiosk machines. We'd love to see what the students are clicking on and what they're interested in. The most recent data that we've been able to see is the number one thing that students are clicking on is entering the workforce. They want to know, I want to go right to work. The top industries that they're looking at is healthcare and construction. And when I presented this to my board, the individuals from those industries said, what schools were clicking on that? I want to know, because those are the schools that I'd like to target. And then also our post-secondary institutions were also interested in seeing the data and what are students interested and what are they clicking on. So we're just starting to collect that data, but that is really important for us. So then as we see that and what they're interested in, it's a microsite. So we're going to continue to upgrade and continue to keep that information current. And we'd love to continue to add any resources that anybody has in the community. We can showcase that on the kiosks that are out and about within the community. That's what I have. That's who we are. And we would love to connect with anybody. And we'll talk further about that in our discussion.
That is very helpful information. I know I was taking notes as you were talking. Before I start even with question and answers, if we have folks who are interested in learning more about the Career Pathway Program, also if someone should receive the survey who is doing workforce development and maybe did not get it yet, how should they reach out about that?
Yep, so they can email me directly and I can send them the link to the survey. It is still live and we are collecting information. We have the date till May 24th, but if somebody is still interested, I can talk with them.
Super, thank you so much for that. So a few of the things I heard, 26% of our workforce is 55 and up. Retaining and upskilling is really going to be a focus, career pathways, and then the educational levels of open job positions. I think what I'm going to do is start with the rest of you and just ask all of you, outside of what we heard here, are there other current trends or challenges in workforce development? And how have they evolved over the years? And Dr. Savin, you're in my top corner, so I will start with you.
I would say that one of the largest challenges we have specific to workforce development in Lancaster County is transportation infrastructure. Helping people get to where they need to get the training and the upskill opportunities.
Fascinating, thank you. Are there any other current trends that you want to call out outside of what we talked about today or just heard about?
The opportunity for career and technical education or workforce education is very strong. It is the strongest it has been in a very long time, as evidenced not just by the enrollment at Lancaster CTC, the enrollment at Thaddeus, but across the Commonwealth at the Career and Technology Centers, all seeing record enrollment as high school students are interested in career pathways and opportunities. The demand is there, the desire is there. We just need to find more folks because we don't have enough to meet the workforce need.
That's a perfect segue over to Valerie. Valerie, we'll follow up with you. Other trends, challenges coming off of our presentation or just in your world right now?
Yeah, when we were kind of provided maybe some questions that, to prepare for, every question I kind of was preparing for, getting information, I feel like I came up with 3 themes. And I think, Anna spoke about a lot of those, but lifelong learning, that is here to stay. And that can look a lot of different ways. So that's upskilling, reskilling, creating career pathways, and then doing better career planning, through our K through 12 system. So I think that's a trend. Collaboration and partnership is huge. And I think we've all learned that we can definitely blend resources, blend expertise. What I love is we're doing more aligning goals and strategies as a community. So I see that really increasing. And the top one, which is probably more prevalent than those, are the way technology is playing into our workforce development. So when I think of companies throughout the state or throughout the world even, they are being more creative, more agile, and more resilient. And that's what our workforce and our education system needs to evolve to. I've worked with Anna at the Workforce Board. We rely on a lot of data. And when it comes to technology, the data is not even keeping up with the real needs. So, we're going to say the word today because we're going to go into a little bit, but AI has really blew up the way we learn, the way businesses operate, and where we haven't quite got that is how do we teach that to just general people, you know, how do they live their lives and use this, but how it also creates opportunity for better learning, and how we actually need to teach people to use the tools, because if not, they're going to get left behind. So I can kind of save some of that, but there's definitely some skills that are identified that AI is contributing to. And I really want to bust the myth that AI is not going to necessarily, you know, displace people from their jobs, but they are going to have to learn differently. And, you know, obviously technology over time has displaced certain positions that are repetitive or dangerous. And that's kind of the benefit of the technology that we have today.
Thank you. As someone who Microsoft now almost every day tells me AI can do this for you, and it's still a little overwhelming to dive in and let AI into my inbox. I can't imagine your entire sector being impacted by it.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrone, I want to ask you first, you know, any specific trends or challenges you're seeing, and then maybe we'll build off of Valerie's response about technology and segue into that. So first, challenges or trends you're seeing.
Well, piggybacking off of everyone here, we talk about AI, and I think it's a threat in some ways to some of us, but it's really going to create more workforce opportunities if you think about it in the long term. You know, and as you think about the employers, what they're going through, what employers are going through, Stuart mentioned transportation. That's one thing that Lancaster Works does in-house. We provide transportation to make sure people have that resource available. You know, and right now, organizations are really beginning to look at creative benefits, the way they can help employees, because employees now, they've been shifted to the hybrid and remote working situations. They now are looking at the cost, financial, time, and energy of going to work every day. And employers are trying to find ways to combat that. You know, they're offering incentives to individual housing subsidies, caregiver benefits, financial well-being courses, student aid loan repayment programs. And we talk about skills. You know, I believe skills requirements are going to overtake educational requirements in the future, because employers are looking for people that have the skills, not necessarily a degree. You know, as I speak here, please forgive me because I had oral surgery, so I have a little bit of a lisp, but I'll try to get through this.
We never
But
would have noticed, but we hope you're
traditional career paths, they're going to collapse, you know, as the workforce continues to evolve. And we talk about DE&I, which is being attacked from all sides. You know, it's not going to disappear either. It's going to really become more embedded in the way we work. And also, we talk about some radical ideas, the 4-day work week. That may become more routine as we look forward into the future. So there are a lot of different things that are happening here that I think really going to impact us in a way that we need to be responsive and really lean into.
Thank you. Stuart, I have a question here for you about how we foster a culture of lifelong learning, which I think dovetails well with this conversation about technology. You're training kids for a future we're not even certain about yet. So what does this culture of lifelong learning and continuous skill development look like in your world?
Well, you know, I think the reason why we're at the point we're at today, experiencing this severe need for employees in the workforce, is the fact that we've always leaned so much to focusing on today's problems and today's training. We haven't thought so much about the future. So right now, I think we're really getting into a point where we realize we got to plan with apprenticeships, putting people into apprenticeship programs where they're really learning from the individuals that have experience in these fields, but also making sure they're ready to evolve. And those fields are changing and evolving. They need to make sure they're prepared to move into the future with use of technology and other resources that are going to become available to students. And I think as we look at that, it presents an opportunity for our community to really form these partnerships that we need to form. And that's happening here in Lancaster to a great extent. You know, we talk about Career Ready Lancaster and those models. Those partnerships are really key, you know, making sure we bring together our employers, our educational and training organizations, our health and human service agencies, to make sure we're working together cohesively to make sure we're preparing the future workforce and equipping them with the resources they need to succeed.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Dr. Savin, thoughts?
Lifelong learning is the way of the future. There's no other way to get around it. If we're talking about in this conversation about AI and how can that work for us? How can that help our students? How can that help business and industry? Coming to the realization that every student who's coming through our institutions will be continuing to learn throughout their career as their careers evolve and change. Building that as a core of what we do in the K-12 system, what we do in the higher ed system to help foster that innovation and growth through continual learning, lifelong learning, to keep the careers going and growing as they evolve.
Thank you. Anna, what are you seeing as the most effective methods for upskilling and reskilling workers?
What we are really seeing is, like I was talking about, the increased interest in incumbent worker training. So looking at, businesses looking within. So the days of looking for that unicorn, the person that has all those skills that you need to fill that one position, employers are just looking within. Okay, so we have one person that maybe just needs a couple of credentials to get them to that spot. And it takes the right person, right? It's not everybody just should be trained up to be a supervisor, but if that person just needs that bump up, so what can we do to get them there? So that increased interest in how can we look within to upskill our current workforce to get them there. That's something that we definitely are seeing an uptick in, and then that we can reimburse that for businesses is definitely a spot to go. And definitely also when you're seeing, so not just that aging workforce, and so people leaving, those are bodies, but the knowledge base. So I think employers are starting to recognize, I'm not just losing a lot of people, but then the skills, sorry, it's train time. But the knowledge that's leaving. So working with businesses to understand what are the competencies now of the individuals that I have, and how can I pass along that knowledge? So just like Tyrone was saying too, apprenticeship opportunities, and maybe not a full apprenticeship, but what are pieces of an apprenticeship model that we can incorporate in passing that knowledge on to other workers?
Thank you. I want to, you mentioned what Tyrone's doing. I think you've all kind of referenced each other over the course of question and answer here. But we have questions that we sent out to each of you, and each one kind of talks a little bit about collaboration. And I'd love to hear what you are doing as it relates to collaboration, but also how this group here is collaborating. We have education, both higher ed, upskilling, actually workforce placement. We're covering all of the bases here. So how do you all work together too? But then what are each one of your individual organizations doing? Dr. Savin, I saw you unmuted if you wanted to go first.
I'm going to give a plug for CRL. Something unique that we have in Lancaster County is Career Ready Lancaster, and that is an organization that is housed within the Workforce Development Board and their operation, and it is the best place for this collaboration to happen. Business, industry, education, government folks to talk about how we can build forward for the need in Lancaster County and the need for our workforce.
With the plug, can you just explain to us, if someone were to go to CRL, what would you find for someone who's not as in the, in the weeds with workforce development, in the know, what would be available to you?
You're going to find pathways and connections to people and organizations who are looking to find employees, to organizations who are looking to help train future and existing employees. You're going to find connections to governmental operations, grant programs that run through Career Ready Lancaster to provide these opportunities to get educators into the workforce. It is kind of a one-stop shop for getting into workforce education for nearly any entity to step in and say, how do we get involved? How do we help bolster workforce in the county?
Valerie, you're nodding along here. Is there anything you wanted to add about CRL?
Just definitely agreeing with everybody. I think what I'll add to CRL is the advocacy piece. So what we're trying to do is create a common language between business and education and the community that we can all relate to. So when we talk about DE&I and who's missing in the workforce, how can we advocate? How can we create more pathways and opportunities for people that are missing? I'll echo what Anna said. I think I'm seeing personally at Thaddeus Stevens a huge increase in employers finally kind of getting the message about upskilling and reskilling. And I'll only say that because we've been talking about that, 6-7 years ago, pre-pandemic, But what I'm experiencing is employers a little bit in a panic state now. And they're coming, they're saying, we realize we do need to create training plans. We have people leaving as the data is showing us. And so really creating different types of lifelong learning, different ways to obtain that is really an equity strategy. So how can we keep, creating this skilled workforce at many different levels and angles? And what I appreciate about, like Anna, this is, we as a community all meet regularly. This feels like a meeting a scheduled meeting that we have. An example of us kind of partnering together as well. And I've taken these skills with me from the workforce board, but this morning we went out to a business in Leola, and they wanted to talk about reskilling and upskilling. They wanted to talk about public resources, and they also wanted to talk about automation and robotics. I am not the expert in all those areas. So I brought along friends from the Manufacturers Association and friends from Mantech with me. And we kind of presented as like 3 unique organizations, but we're all here to help. And that doesn't happen everywhere. And they even had people from across the country, different plants, and it is very unique here. So I think, we need to keep doing this work and growing it. So I think it's really unique and valuable to our local community.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I know one of the things I often hear about Lancaster County is how collaborative it is. When there is a problem, we come together to figure out solutions. Anna, what would you like to add?
I think the thing I'd like to add about it is, Career Ready Lancaster, most recently, what we've been talking about it is a movement. And we say it's something you have to come and experience and come to a meeting, which we have been intentional about renaming as our quarterly connections meeting, because you leave always making a new connection. And something I heard, I won't say I created it, but I heard somebody mention about a partnership. So a partnership is successful when it is a relationship. So your partnerships, and just like we're talking here, so partnerships are relationships. So when you have built trust is the foundation of all relationships. And, like Valerie said, you meet with somebody, I don't have the answer, but guess what? I'm going to get back to you and I'm going to do a soft handoff because I know the resource you need. It is so-and-so. So you're not just telling somebody, well, go to this website or go there. You're giving somebody a person's name and a direct connection. And that is what's so successful about Career Ready Lancaster. It's creating that partnership, but it's relationship building. So when you go to a meeting, you're always going to walk away with a new relationship that's been built with a connection that you needed that's beneficial to whether it's your business or your organization or you as an individual. And that's why we call it a movement. And it's just your connection. And it's all of us. And that's why I love that Tyrone, Dr. Savin or Valerie can say our. The Workforce Development Board might be the backbone organization to Career Ready Lancaster because we can help fund it with funding, but it's all of ours. Career Ready Lancaster is for everybody. Let's elevate all the resources within Lancaster County under CRL. It's all of ours. It's not just ours. We're just funding it, but it's everybody's resource. So, yep, that's really what I wanted to add about it. It's very relationship building.
Wonderful. And we'll make sure everyone gets the link to Career Ready Lancaster too. Tyrone, anything you wanted to add to the conversation on collaboration?
Well, also, I'll chime in. Career Ready Lancaster. I'm a part of the employer engagement committee there, and that's really key is to get our employer community on board to make sure they're aware of this. Anna mentioned at the start how workforce development is Lancaster County's best kept secret. Well, we're trying to address Lancaster County's biggest issue. We need to find some way of making sure we bring the rest of the county into this and get them involved. I think an unconditional commitment to playing a part in this community-wide workforce development collective net partnership, which is what Career Ready Lancaster is. It is truly that partnership that we've been looking for so long. And I think as we get into it, I think we need to make sure we educate the potential stakeholders and partners that even though they're partners and benefactors, they're also going to benefit from this. That's the real key. That's the beauty of the program. Everyone that participates and gives gets back. So I think it's something that we've got to find a way of sharing that news and making sure our entire community gets on board with it.
And Career Ready Lancaster, just for our audience to be clear, is a pathway that anyone could enter through, correct? So if you're a business, it's useful to you if you are looking to be upskilled and need resources on that. It's a one-stop shop for the entire community.
Correct. Yep.
Wonderful. So we've talked about what we're doing here, but we know all the change can't just happen on a Lancaster County level with our collaboration. So what policy changes, and Anna, I'll start with you on this, but what policy changes, either local level, state, or even national, are needed to strengthen our workforce development here in Lancaster County?
I think what I will say is, at a policy level, is we need to engage our policy makers and narrating the success and the stories that we have here. And we do a decent, I'll say a decent job. You know, Tyrone is a great cheerleader and takes a lot of our stories to higher levels. But I think we have to do a better job of really engaging our local elected officials. You know, I have monthly meetings with our county officials and let them know about what we're doing, but really looking at narrating a story. So we can bring all the data that we have and how much money we need. And that's great. But we need to bring these stories, and we need to be telling, how are these dollars impacting the local individuals? What are the stories being told? And I think we can do a better job there. I also think making sure, and this is something we're currently right now going through our strategic plan process, but making sure that we are letting our community know the funding that we receive and the impact of any changes at the state level. So how can I engage my community? What can you do to help create and elevate the voices of the individuals that you're working with? Tell us your stories. How are these funds helping you? And how can we take that information back to our local elected officials? And we really are looking at, you know, it's really hard to narrate folks that engage with our funding. There's a lot of eligibility and red tape. That's never going to go away. That is just part of engaging with us, but we can do a better job of going after additional funding to help support individuals. And we can also help alleviate some of that red tape. And that is some of the information that we can share at the state level. There's some unnecessary things that we do at a local level that really doesn't have to happen. And those are some policy changes that we can engage with all of you leaders to make sure our processes are seamless and that we are being effective and making sure that we can serve the individuals that you have, whether they're youth, adults. We should be able to engage with individuals, and it shouldn't be so difficult to engage with our services. So we're making sure that we have the services available and the quality is there as well.
Thank you. Dr. Savin, as I'm thinking of policy, I know that quite a bit of our curriculum is set by policy. And as I understand it, we've done a lot of work in having conversations, both state and national level, also about when we start talking to kids about different pathways. Is there advocacy that needs to be done still as it relates to education and workforce development?
So we at the CTC are in the unique position where our cooperative education programs enable youth under 18 to work in an industrial setting. And there are ways around the OSHA regulations for that. In order to open it up for more, we do need advocacy at the federal level to get some changes on that. So a standard K-12 district, unless they have a program of study like we have in the career and tech ed world, cannot bring their students in for those opportunities. And we want to provide those opportunities beyond just what we can do at the CTC. We have such a need for a workforce far exceeding the number of students graduating every year. Anything we can do to help make it easier for school districts to get students to experience opportunities to see which way they want to go.
Wonderful, thank you. We have a question in the chat, and it's actually perfect timing because I do want to chat with all of you. Our question in the chat here, I will just read it out, is how well is the workforce development system addressing the needs of Hispanic and African American residents? But I'd also like to increase that to include, you know, LGBTQ plus individuals with different abilities, We can talk through veterans, reentry. There's a lot of ways that we can be intentional about making sure we're serving all of our community. So can you take some turns speaking to how we're specifically meeting needs of Hispanic and African American residents, but also what equity looks like in workforce development? And actually, Tyrone, I'll start with you and then we'll go to Anna because you're both unmuted.
Well, I know on the Elsherm board right now, we are starting a campaign to look for minority and diverse owned businesses here in our community to celebrate. Our first event's going to be June 5th over at Southern Market. We'll be introducing this event. So we're going out and we're trying to identify these organizations that are owned by people of color, individuals of different sexual orientations, and trying to identify ways that we can highlight their successes and showing them, highlighting them in our community and showcasing their talents and abilities so that our community can realize that we are an inclusive community that is really leaning into the skills that everyone provides and the resources that everyone provides to our community, because we are all interdependent. And so we want to make sure that we highlight what's going on here locally so we can hopefully create a system that's going to be replicated elsewhere.
Wonderful, thank you. Anna.
Yeah, so I will say the essence of our funding is geared to helping individuals who are underrepresented. So, you know, for example, our TANF dollars, temporary assistance for needy families, we are required to make sure that our funding is serving those who are in most need. We are going after to make sure we have priority of services. So whoever, you know, we have to make sure that we are tracking the services that we are providing for individuals, and they have to be serving all individuals. We have to make sure, for example, who are represented in our providers are our providers that we are having and hiring to work with the individuals in our community. Do they represent the community that we serve? We can put that in our RFP and our contracts. Are we, as the board, also being mindful of that? So we are intentional. You know, we have requirements of who has to make up individuals that serve on our board. So we are also being intentional in making sure that we look at who is serving on our board, and as much as I can have control over that, make sure that we are diversifying the individuals that are, you know, making the impact. Also, for example, on Career Ready Lancaster, we're being very intentional to make sure we are, you know, all the services that we have available, we are making sure we're getting out to our after-school providers. When we put grants and funding out, we are making sure we put those services out for anybody to apply for. I recently just had a conversation with Landing Watson to help support us looking for individuals to serve on our board. And anytime we have RFPs, requests for funds, or requests for quotes that go out, we send them out to him as well to help us make sure that you know, small businesses or individuals out in our community are seeing these requests for quotes, and that all individuals can apply for the funding that we have. So we are being intentional to diversify the subrecipients that we work with and the services that we provide. You know, and we're always growing and learning. So if there's other individuals that would like to help with that, we have a very diverse group working in our youth committee as well. And there's a subcommittee tackling transportation. I know Dr. Savin talked about that, working with our RTA and developing a pilot project to help individuals with transportation issues to certain geographic areas. So there's all different ways, and you don't have to be a board member to be on some of our subcommittees. So there's all different ways for individuals to tap in to make sure that our services are getting to all individuals. So I welcome anybody that would like to be a part of that to join us. And, you know, and a lot of that, like I said, is regulatory and guided to us and told of how we have to make sure that all of our services are being served to all individuals.
Thank you. Valerie?
I think the only thing I'll add is you always have to have one data geek on the panel, but you know, I think to understand where we're at and where we need to go, we need to look at data. So we have like the racial equity study that came out by the Y recently. But really kind of to sum it up, what we're saying is let's know what the data is telling us, where the inequities are, be intentional about the programs that we design and the outcomes and the investments of our funds, and then measure that and see, make sure we're moving the needle. And then, there's inequities in wages as well. So again, there's a lot of advocacy that can be done. We kind of touched on some of the barriers that people face. And I will say, to me, one of the biggest policy changes that we need is around childcare, accessible to childcare, the childcare workforce. So that could be a whole nother community conversation. As we know, we've had those, but there definitely are some inequities and things that we definitely need policy change on to make the workforce more open to all types of workers.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know about or reminding us of the racial equity profile. We will make sure to send that out, but that really does quite clearly highlight inequities both in access and in pay for our Black and Brown communities. And we can't move forward unless we know what the current landscape of our community is. So I appreciate you reminding us of that. Dr. Savin.
Coming back to that question that was asked about serving populations, I think we need to speak to the partnership that grew between Thaddeus and SACA. Specifically, that was a very purposeful partnership that was built to provide opportunities, training in now 2 locations, I believe, Val.
Yeah, one of the other things I kind of forgot to mention, but is really powerful about this partnership is we didn't talk about some of the advocacy that needs to be done as well is how people access funding for education. So typically, we've had federal aid that is for degree type programs, but according to like the data that Anna shared, a lot of our positions now, a lot of our occupations need credentials or skills based. So a different form of education. However, the policy, for people accessing dollars to support that is non-existent. So there is some Pell workforce legislation out there, but with SACA, they are a strong partner because they're very philanthropic and they go out and seek these funds to help people get these skilled training. So we're able to provide that technical skills training. SACA works directly with the most needed underserved population. One of the biggest populations we serve in these programs are refugees and immigrants. So we've built in ways to deal with language barriers and different learning styles. So again, it comes back to partnerships. You definitely have to have community partners that have, that are kind of seeking funding and ways to support educational institutions. And what I've definitely seen again is employers really taking the responsibility to think about their culture, think about their workforce, and really help people who traditionally have not had the opportunity to go get skilled training, get that while they're working. So and you look at the World Economic Forum, these are strategies that are global. These are not just local or state or even in the United States. It's what we've recognized that we need as a workforce.
Thank you. We appreciate having a data geek on all the time. We're getting towards the end of our time here. I want to be good stewards of your time and of our attendees' time. We have one last question in the chat, Anna, about how a school goes about getting a kiosk and if there's a cost to it. It looks like you're typing an answer to that one. So I will let that go. I have in my notes that we need to make sure that information about CRL gets out to everyone, the racial equity study, information about the survey that is happening until May 24. And then finally, the career pathway kiosk. So we'll share that out in our follow-up email. Please watch for that. I'm grateful to you all for joining us for this conversation. I think it's a really critical conversation, and I'm glad to hear you're having it outside of this space here. I know it's ongoing and continuing at the same time. I'm thankful to all of you who have joined us for an hour of your day. Please stay tuned for future conversations about our community. Watch for a follow-up email later this week. And then we have 3 minutes left. Any closing thoughts from our panel to help us wrap up this conversation? And Dr. Savin, I'll start with you.
Looking to provide opportunity is what we are here for. And I would say that for everyone that is on this panel and the work that the United Way does. So I want to thank you for hosting this and having this event and this opportunity to share and talk about ideas. Get involved is what I would say to the folks who are listening to us. pick an agency, pick an entity, get involved, help build our workforce forward.
Thank you. Valerie.
I was trying to find the date quick, but we barely kind of talked about AI, but I think it's important for everybody to keep that in front of them. And I know Millersville University at the end of this month is hosting a session for the community on AI. How do we address it in schools? How do we address it with the workforce and everything? So we'll get you information on that you can share. But again, it's not going away. We're forced to adapt to it. But there's a lot of positives. So I just want to have people remember to stay as engaged and up to date as possible on that.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll look for that too and try to send that out in our follow-up email. Tyrone.
Well, I gotta say, as I feel like I'm the geriatric poster child for proof that these type of partnerships work, because they took me out of the projects in Trenton and put me here today. And if it had not been for the efforts of many agencies, organizations that were behind those efforts, there's no way I could have achieved anything in my life. And I'd like to invite our audience to join us in this work, because it is very important work and it's making a difference in our community. So I invite everyone to join in.
Thank you. And if folks are interested in the June 5 event at Southern Market, can they find that on Lancaster Works website, or can we send that out?
It's going to be on the Elsham.
Okay, on Elsham. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Anna, last but not least.
I will piggyback what Dr. Savin said is really just, we have a great community here, and share your voice. You never know what your idea could be the idea, but there's a lot of folks here that are collaborating and just want to help. So our next Career Ready Lancaster meeting is going to be in an evening connections meeting. It's really kind of a social. Of course, we have to present something, so we will have something there to present, but we are really looking to have a less formal connection meeting. So be on the lookout for that. And I believe the date is June 18th, but we can get that out to everybody. And again, it's for all people. So come on out, just learn about Career Ready Lancaster, the resources. There's probably something for everybody to connect you to the community here in Lancaster.
Thank you. Thank you also very much for your time, for the work you're doing day in and day out. And we're grateful that you were able to spend an hour with us. Friends, if you found this conversation interesting, you'd like to share it, we'll send the link out to you. Otherwise, follow along on United Way's Facebook page, Threads, Instagram, you name it, our website, and stay tuned for future conversations. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.